questions, and I did a lot of different kinds of exhibitions trying to figure out my answer to that. And what I eventually realized is that my imagination has a lot of more room to grow. It's kind of like Olivia, who's here in the audience, always calls me a gaseous matter. She's like, you'll fill up any space you get into. And so I feel like I felt that exact feeling where I would walk into a room and I'd be like, wait, actually, I have these crazy dreams and I have these crazy images of cities and layered landscapes and things that are inside my head that can only be created in a spatial way. And so I started to feel that it was really important for me to try to make very like disarming, immersive installations, because I wanted, like, you know how your eye kind of moves through a painting and you're taught like in art appreciation class, the sort of flow of a work? Well, I started to feel like I wanted that to happen with human bodies. Like I wanted you to be able to explore the space, and I wanted your body to be able to move through the space the same way that your eye moves through a painting. And I wanted that kind of dreamlike quality that I wake from every morning to be something that I could share with people. And so when I started to get these invitations, I was like, okay, let's do this. And I found that it really just opened up a larger channel for me to expand upon the expression that I was making in spaces where I wasn't, worried about it raining on it, for example. And then of course realizing, as I work with more and more places, here's the Lhasa in her first home in New Orleans. As I work with more and more places, I realize the roles of institutions, of museums as public institutions. And I've seen, places like the Brooklyn Museum have like incredible teaching programs and just really do like great work to try to connect with people in the neighborhood and with people in the city. And so, I'm excited to see, as the DIA I think is really taking that direction, I'm excited to see how that work expands for you guys here in Detroit. So these are just some shots of the installations. This is the last major installation that I did. It was at the Brooklyn Museum, and it was called Submerged Motherlands. And I like to work site-specifically with architecture, and the space that I chose was about a 60-foot rotunda. And I saw the sculpture that had gone in there before it was about 30 feet tall, and it looked like this big. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to work in this whole space if I'm really gonna truly site-specifically embrace this space. And so I ended up building with a 60-foot mapo tree, and then made with paper leaves, and then bringing together a series of rafts that I had lived on for a few years to be part of the installation. I'll show those next. And so to change directions a bit, at the time that I first started to get invited to museums and galleries, I had this feeling where I was like, okay, great, this is amazing, but I still feel this really deep connection to like art and context. So making work out on the street was this kind of initial step of being like, how do I make work that's part of people's lives in this particular way? But that question was like a bigger question that kept having different answers for me. And so at the time that there was a lot of political organizing going on in New York around trying to stop the Iraq War. And I just remember feeling like we were just talking to each other, and that I had been a 16-year-old kid in a small town, and that anything that came my way was so totally life-changing. And I was like, okay, how do we take this culture that we're making together for each other here in New York, and how do we share it with the kids that we were when we were teenagers in far-off places? And so one of the ideas that came up was this idea of making a series of rafts that floated on this styrofoam right here, and building them all together out of collected New York City construction garbage and going down the Mississippi River and stopping in towns. So here we are building the rafts on the banks of the Mississippi, and we were about 30 people. One of the ways people always ask like how I do the projects that I do, and one of the kind of secrets of it, Wendell, one of the secrets of it is this really broad extended network of artists who are kind of all over the country. So you can always call up somebody and be like, hey, you're in Minneapolis, where should I build my raft? Hey, you're in New Orleans, you know how to build a raft, you want to come build? And so we put out this big call, and about 30 of our friends said like, yeah, let's do it. And so we started having meetings and collecting things and building, and we set off. And we started from the headwaters of at Minneapolis, and we made our way slowly down the Mississippi River, having campfires every night and doing performances in the evenings. There's a man in the front with a blue shirt, and his name is Papa Neutrino, and he is a guy that was basically our mentor. He taught us how to build these rafts, and he and his family had built a series of junk rafts that had gone across the Atlantic Ocean. I think that they kind of survived.